What's going on YouTube? Wild Lion Games here. I'm reviewing Madden 25, going over the gameplay, graphics, sound, superstar mode, franchise mode, and UI UX design. I'm going to be very thorough with the game. I'm going to dive into all the aspects, all the various features, and I'm going to be comparing it to older games and using older games as examples, such as even Madden 24 all the way to Madden 10 on the Xbox 360 and a little bit of All-Pro Football 2K8. I'm not a Madden fan. I really want to be. I would love to be in love with Madden, but I haven't bought the game since 2016. But I always play the EA trial in hopes that maybe I'm going to pick up the controller and at the very least have fun again. So with that being said, let's jump into the review. Graphics up first, and it looks good still for the most part. On the field, the grass looks nice. The stadium lighting is more dynamic than 2024. I'm showing you examples here in Jacksonville for both Madden 24 and Madden 25. I think the attention to details on the players look nice as well, and the stitching on the jersey numbers, the reflective helmets, cleat models, just the overall textures look great. Where the graphics fail is the player models off the field. Like my superstar QB getting drafted and looking like a pear. Mr. Potato Head looking ass over here. And computer-generated draft class players often have the same faces as each other. All in all, when it comes down to it, everything looks great on the field while you're playing. And the only time I lose immersion is when I see, a 190-pound defensive back getting drafted and he looks like a weeble wobble. So, unless you're pixel peeping, I think you should be happy with how the game looks. Madden, in my opinion, others will disagree. I do think that as a sports game, it's always looked pretty good. Nothing's really changed here. Presentation. Another year, another Madden with non-existent presentation. I mean, there are some new camera angles and they finally got rid of that stupid studio intro for Madden 24 and 23, but it's largely the same thing. Halftime's non-existent. You can see here I got one play and that was it. And people will get mad and say I'm just being nostalgic about the old games, but I'm not. I mean, there was a time we had a proper halftime show. And yes, I'm talking 2K5, but at the same time, I'm also not talking about 2K5. But even Madden themselves used to implement a real halftime show back in the day.
We'll get you straight to the highlights. Enjoy.
It wasn't much, but it is way more than what we have now. And this is my point. So when you get mad at me for complaining, this is why. Because there are Madden games that are more than 10 years old that have better presentation than current Madden games. So until we can actually get a Madden game from EA that isn't gaslighting us into new features and better presentation, and that actually reaches the presentation that we used to be at in Madden, I'm still gonna complain. Sound. Madden actually made a good soundtrack for once, but you have to find it first. Now, I'm not sure what kind of agreements are signed when EA and these artists and record labels sign contracts with each other to have their music in the game, but I gotta tell you, if I'm Green Day or T.I. or Rough Riders, I'm gonna be pretty unhappy that by default, my music isn't toggled on to be played. So when I'm playing Madden, I was trying to figure out why I kept hearing the same 10 songs over and over and over again, and I thought to myself, I was like, dude, there is no way this is the whole soundtrack. And sure enough, I go into the music and I see all this music that isn't being played. I mean, there is some great throwbacks in here too. You're gonna feel like after you toggle these on, you're gonna feel like you've transported back into the early 2000s. The crowd noise is cool in Madden as well. Nothing like super special or extraordinary, I should say, but the electric roars at the right moments in the game really bring big plays to life.
They'll start the drive with Harris. Trying to keep those big legs churning, but he's going to go down in the backfield again. Well, he tries to force it in, and it's intercepted.
The biggest con for the sound department is the commentary.
And forget the interception. He makes this a pick six touchdown.
In theory, having 3 commentary teams keeps the game sounding fresh for the user because you wouldn't be hearing the same 2 voices every week. However, this only works when the commentary is actually good. Otherwise, you create this ear-bleeding experience that is not enjoyable. It makes the user want to mute the game. And Kate Scott, I'm sorry. I'm sure you're a great person. I'm sure you do a great job in real life. I'm unfamiliar with your commentary game, if I'm being honest. I'm not sure if EA recorded a few lines and just did a poor job implementing them, but I don't know what it is. It sounds robotic and it's borderline AI. I mean, the commentators get things wrong fairly regularly. Like here, they're thinking the game is in Nashville.
That's the 2-minute warning here in Nashville.
Or here, thinking that this is the first play of the game in the Chiefs-Saints game.
That you just throw the pick six and you come right back out on the field.
Oh, the first play of the game going to be intercepted.
And I get it. Commentary in sports video games is difficult, and very few have done it correctly. It's extremely hard to record dialogue for the commentary booth that's gonna be, specific to what every individual user's, franchise experience or game experience is gonna be. But the commentary is just awful across the board. And I called out Kate Scott because of how just AI her voice sounds.
3 yards on the first down play, and that brings up 2nd and 7.
But all three commentary teams provide nothing positive to the Madden experience. And speaking of features that are great in theory but poorly executed, let's skip ahead and talk about franchise mode. Storylines. The biggest change in franchise mode this year is the dynamic storylines throughout the season, where you interact with media and players, you make decisions that can impact morale, provide XP boost, and potentially uncover new development traits. And these can happen, they can start and end within a week, and they can start at the beginning of the season and end at the end of the season. However, let's everybody say it at once. Storylines are what? Poorly implemented. Yes, that's correct. Poor. If you said poorly implemented, give yourself a plus on your grade sheet. It slows down the game, and the media questions just don't make any sense, and the locker room talk is so far-fetched. I'm curious if anyone on the Madden development team has actually ever stepped foot in a locker room at any level of football. Let me paint a picture for you, dude. All right, so we're in the Falcons franchise mode here. If your head coach walks into the room and starts polling players about what the gameplay should be this week, just go home. You've lost. Like, that's not happening. The head coach isn't walking into the meeting room saying, hey guys, I haven't watched film on our opponent yet, so what do you think we should do? Well, who should we look out for? Who's the star players on that? Like, bro, if the head coach comes in there asking you to like, hey guys, I haven't scouted, so can you tell me who's good on their team? It's just not realistic. It doesn't make sense. Not even that, why is it all just so painstakingly long and drawn out? Plus, there's this example here of like forcing fumbles to win the game. Why is the defensive goal for stopping their run game is, hey coach, you know what will help us out this week? If we force a fumble. Like, no, how about we contain the run game and hold them under 100 rush yards? If our goal is to stop their dominant run game, like, yes, forcing fumbles are great, but that's not the core focus. That's not what we're supposed to be focusing on. If you want to implement storylines, that's great, but it's got to be useful and it needs to have meaning. It can't just be random. I should be able to view stats during these team meeting scenarios so that I can make an educated game plan and set a realistic goal for the team to meet, not some arbitrary stat line that the game engine is pulling out of a box. For example, All Pro Football 2K8, they have the VIPs, which is what they brought over from ESPN 2K5. And in here, I can look at my run attempts and run yards per direction, left, right, middle. I can look at my passing breakdown across the field, what hot routes I use the most, how often I use motion, all that stuff. And with 2K5, you could go through all the head coaches for the different teams and see their play calling tendencies as well. Just let me look at teams' tendencies, figure out what they're good at on paper and say, okay, I see they do a terrible job running the ball. They're one of the best passing teams in the league. We have a mediocre secondary, so we probably can't do much about the passing game, but we can try and focus our attention on the interior defensive line to get a lot of run pressure so that we can be a nickel defense and slow things down in the air. Something along those lines. It doesn't need to be that in-depth, but there needs to be meaning behind the choices that you're making. And again, the other thing with storylines, guys, is it's not a new feature. It's not new. Storylines was in Madden 24. I'm playing Madden 24 right now to prove it to you. And I'm keeping it as the Falcons to keep things similar. Look, I'm still getting media conversations. I'm still talking about players with goals. I'm still responding to questions that have various impacts on the locker room and potential XP boosts and different things like, hey, let's keep them, under 150 rushing yards this week. And this is a Madden 24. And in Madden 24, I don't have a player asking me if I accept him because he likes being close to home. Like, what? I have to go through an entire cutscene so this player can be like, hey, coach, my number one motivator is I like being close to home. Do you still accept me? Like, this is so stupid. All right, I'm back, guys. I've calmed down. Storylines, it's like, it is cool. Sometimes it works. You know, right here with Kirk Cousins, he's unsure if he wants to mentor Michael Penix Jr. And I get it. You know, we draft Michael Penix. Kirk Cousins know that he's coming for his job. So, like, why would he want to spend his time mentoring this guy? Like, he's got a lot on his plate, as he says, and that makes sense. Bijan Robinson wants to have a meeting with me to focus on drafting an offensive lineman to help him out. Like, these two situations are good. This is accurate. This is the type of stuff we want to put you as the coach in a predicament. Like, I'm in the draft here and I'm like, dude, I really want to draft this receiver in the first round, but I also know my star running back really wants me to go after, an interior lineman. And so now I have to make a decision. Do I go after that receiver or do I make my running back happy? The funny thing is, I drafted the receiver and I didn't draft a very good guard, and so I failed to meet Bijan Robinson's requirements. The following season, in the preseason, he never said anything. There was never a meeting with Bijan Robinson. His morale never dropped. It was just like he completely forgot. He went on vacation for the summer and forgot he asked me that question. So it actually didn't have any repercussions. But again, cool idea. Implementation's done very poorly. And if you're wondering why I've spent all this time in the franchise mode section talking about storylines, is because outside of this feature, like, everything else operates the same. Scouting works the same in 2024. You assign scouts to different regions. They focus on different position types. The different regions have strengths in other position types. And throughout the year, you uncover more information about these college prospects. Signing and trading players works the same. Upgrading your players on your roster remains the same. If you want to play in owner mode and you want to do ticket prices and merchandise, all of that operates just the same. Even the relocation cities are the same. I'm surprised that Munich and Frankfurt, Germany aren't an option, being that the NFL plays games there now. But yeah, I mean, everything is the same. So, I mean, there's a ton of control with upgrading your players on the roster. Being able to play mini camp games with specific players of your choice for bonus XP is nice too. But again, that was in Madden 24. And so to keep this video from being longer than it needs to be, if I said it in Madden 24's franchise mode review, it also applies here too. I even went back and played Madden 10 to check out scouting, because I know that people are gonna be like, hey man, you gotta stop being nostalgic, like those games are old, they're not as good as you remember. And to a degree, you're correct. But again, and also sorry for the quality, my capture card for the 360 wasn't working, so I had to make do with, recording on my phone. But scouting in Madden 10 resembles something closely to college football. I can assign scouts to different players up to 18, and I can learn more about those specific players. So I have their combine numbers, but nothing else. I send them a few weeks ahead, and then I can get a bunch of information unlocked about this running back, and I can see his speed, I can see his acceleration. I'm like, yo, this dude is fast, he's got good size, and honestly, that's enough for me to want to draft him. So now I can just take my scout off him, open up a free slot, and maybe I'll go put him on this receiver to learn more about a new player. Versus, scouting in Madden 25, I get to the draft and I don't know what my scouts have been doing all season. I mean, they barely know anything about these college prospects. So the idea of region-based scouting and progressively learning about more position groups is great, but once again, everybody in class, what's the answer here? A poorly implemented, that's correct. You said poorly implemented feature, give yourself another point. So then in franchise mode, we move on to the NFL draft, which was like another major, I don't know if you want to call it feature, just like an update that EA was bragging about. It's cool, it's a bit underwhelming, but maybe I'm just being a hater at this point. Roger Goodell doesn't talk, so when you're going through the draft board, it's just kind of like crowd noise and some music. If you're going through your draft board and just kind of browsing prospects, you constantly get interrupted to watch a cutscene when a player gets drafted, which in my opinion is highly annoying. Like, I think the cutscene's cool. You see the player come across the stage, he gets his jersey, they shake hands. But if I'm going through like my draft board and just analyzing who's available, just give me like a ticker notification at the top and move on to the next pick. Like, obviously I'm not sitting there watching the presentation, so don't force me out of what I'm doing to watch the presentation. That's all I'm saying. The new draft backdrop is sleek, it's a cool design, it's the best it's looked in any Madden game, so I guess a fresh coat of paint is nice. It enhances the experience, I'm not gonna lie, it really does enhance the experience, but does it justify $60 of experience? I guess you have to wait to find out in my final verdict. Which is not now, because I also simmed through multiple seasons in franchise mode to check out the sim logic in Madden, and that hasn't changed either. I went through 6 years with the Falcons. The Cowboys were in 3 Super Bowls, they won 2 of them. The Chiefs were in 2 Super Bowls. But the biggest oddity was the quarterback stats are just outrageous from season to season. I mean, the completion percentages are sky high compared to the real life NFL. I mean, last year, one player had a completion percentage above 70%. And yet in Madden, every single year, there's like 10 quarterbacks throwing passes at 70% or higher, and sometimes even as high as 78%. The touchdown interception ratio is off the charts. I mean, you have 10 quarterbacks putting up MVP caliber numbers. And one year, Mahomes didn't even throw an interception. He was just absolutely perfect. I messed with the sliders in the game to decrease the quarterback accuracy, and then somehow the completion percentage got better the next season. Then I improved the defensive logic, and the numbers didn't change. And no matter how much I adjusted the sliders, the stats didn't change. The touchdown interception ratios were still outrageous. The completion percentages were still extremely high across the board. And it was, I guess it was disappointing to see the sliders didn't adjust those stats, because I was really hoping I could find some fun in tweaking the sliders and getting the game's engine to replicate season stats that were a little bit closer to representing the real life NFL. I've been doing a lot of complaining so far, so let's talk about what's good in the game. The biggest improvement by far is the UI UX. I mean, the menu is so clean, it's so organized, it's faster, it's more efficient. My favorite aspect in franchise mode is the right thumbstick. You know, I can flick it left to right in the home screen to navigate, you know, game preview, team stats, player stats, league leaders, standings, and then I can flick it up and down to, you know, look at all the storylines and social media. There's no entering and exiting menus for any of this. It's all done with one stick. It's highly responsive. There's no loading. It's great design. The spacing of all the information is really nice. They finally ditched that like yellow highlighter color on everything. Everything in the menus looks good. They don't lag anymore. They move about as quick as menus should. The experience has been wonderful. The UI UX design it's really awesome. It's great. The next best improvement, believe it or not, is gameplay. Now, I mean, don't come after me with your pitchforks yet. Improving gameplay isn't saying much, let's be honest here, but this is the best playing Madden on the PS5 generation consoles that we've had, in my opinion. Running the ball is responsive and crisp. I mean, look here at this example where I'm able to make a cutback behind the line of scrimmage to hit the hole with Travis Etienne, and I just feel like for the first time, I have so much control over where my running back goes without the feeling of like sliding around on skates or being stuck in an animation for too long. There's a great moment here with tackle recovery from the CPU running back. The defender comes off a block and he lowers his shoulder into the ball carrier, but Tony Pollard's able to recover and keep running because it's kind of a glancing blow. He's a big guy, but it's a glancing blow. He can recover, keep running downfield. And then here in the Steelers and Bears game, the running back is showing off that new technology where they can get skinny and get through the line of scrimmage to avoid defenders, and seeing things like this is so nice because in previous Maddens, they would have just glued together and gone through some sort of like tackle or breaking tackle animation. And I love these types of moments. The player physics look and feel the best they have in over, maybe even ever, to be honest, for Madden. I went back and played Madden 10. I went back and played the PS2 Madden 08 version. And like, I really do believe that this is the best playing Madden on the field. The animations haven't changed much, and I can tell that there's been better programming with which animations are selected in various scenarios. You know, bodies fall more naturally than they have in previous games, and momentum actually seems to play a factor for once in the collisions with the ball carrier. However, it's still Madden, and you're still gonna see Madden moments. Like here, my linebacker not paying attention, not turning and looking at the ball, and he just can't make the interception because he's just like running sideways. Or this random bug where I'm switching players on the defensive line to try and sack the quarterback, but instead of switching to the closest defender, to the ball carrier, it just switches me to a DB, and then it leaves the receiver wide open for a touchdown. And boom tech doesn't always look good. I mean, here's a weird tackle in the Broncos-Browns game. I don't really know like what this was. A terrible blitz from the CPU where he just turns into my guard to get blocked. And yes, it helped me out because I broke off a big run, but at the same time, it's the same problem that Madden has had on this generation of consoles, and that's that feeling that you're never truly fully in control of the outcome. You break a big run, and the reason is because of the game's coding wants to force this block interaction instead of letting the safety blitzing free. Here, Jerry Jeudy makes an impossible sideline catch because the game transitions the defensive back out of the SWAT deflect pass animation into a tackle animation, thus allowing him to make a tippy-toe sideline catch. We have here where I'm sliding into my offensive lineman and I have no control over my running back all of a sudden. Even if I go back to that tackle recovery example, which I praised, I'm also not sure what my blitzing defensive back is doing with his angle. It's like he's purposely going out wide and like looping himself around so that he doesn't interrupt the boom tech animation of like the running back recovery system. And so while gameplay has improved from previous years, there's still way too many things that just have me shaking my head during the game. And here I get a great pick six to start the game against the Saints. But, I mean, in typical Madden fashion, the defense doesn't even run what they're supposed to be running. You know, I have a defensive back going into the deep zone. My safety's coming down to cover the flats. They both end up covering the flats, and then the safety last second ends up picking up the slot receiver. But this results in a pick. And not because I called a great defense, but because the AI didn't even play the defense I called and put themselves in the right position to force an interception. And if I remain on this play, watch my linebacker who's supposed to be staying in that hook zone in the middle of the field. As soon as the ball is thrown, he then runs the opposite direction of the way the ball is thrown. Also a bug is when you squib kick in the game, it's a penalty.
The Bears send the kicking team out there and they will send this one away.
Illegal touching, offense.
Well, you don't see that often. He just mishit it, and it goes out of bounds.
For the ball going out of bounds, I don't know how, but every time I squib kick and I make sure it lands within the zone, it's a penalty. It's always illegal touching the ball when out of bounds and they get it on the 40. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe I'm not understanding the kickoff rules. Another bug is I can never run a trick play on kickoff return. I think I've gotten L1 to work once out of all my attempts, that he just never pitches the ball on the reverse. So I'm not sure what's going on there either. Superstar mode. Superstar mode is largely the same as well, but they did add some extra customization for your player. You can actually change your archetype and body type and even apply your own custom archetype to build the exact player you want. I really enjoyed this. It kind of makes it a bit closer to that 2K quality of my career. It's a small improvement, but it is an improvement in the right direction. Everything else is the same with the 40-yard dash, bench press at the combine, your shuttle run. You get quizzed, eventually get drafted, and then you play out your career exactly as you had before. Again, I would love to see some of those old features from the PS2 days make a comeback. You know, I remember being able to act in movies in the off-season or sign deals with different brands to appear in advertisements. Your apartment would eventually be upgraded to a loft and then a mansion. And even in NHL 24, you can purchase houses and cars. You can invest your money into the stock market. You can set up your own charity. And these purchases are all cosmetic, but they also do, at least in NHL, have like a small effect on your player's personality and attributes. And so superstar mode, yeah, you can, that's pretty much really the only change this year from last year is you have extra archetype abilities. There's some new face models you can choose when customization, but outside of that player customization, everything is the same as what you've experienced before. So how do I rate this game? As you guys know, I rate my games on an obscure scale that doesn't follow any sort of rules, but I do promise that it makes sense. So I rate Madden 25, Pimp My Ride. Pimp My Ride was this badass TV show where they took beaters of cars and, well, you know, pimped them out. And at the time I loved it. You know, having TVs in your mud flaps is dope, but in retrospect, it's not very practical. Pimp My Ride actually never fixed the mechanical problems of cars. They just gave the cars fresh paint jobs, chrome rims, new leather, and put a satellite dish on top of it and hyped you up. The cars always look cool, but some of the features like putting a fish tank in the car just don't really make sense. And I think that's where Madden 25 is at. Visually, it's shiny and fresh. The graphics are nice, the UI, UX is just wonderful, and they add all these cool features like dynamic storylines and custom superstar archetypes and a new draft presentation in franchise mode. But the problem is, they aren't implemented in a practical way, and it doesn't actually make the game better. So, just like Pimp My Ride, Madden has been taking a beater of an engine and trying to put a new paint job on it with a fish tank inside, playing you some music by DMX, hoping you'll be happy and won't ask questions about it later. I will say that Madden 25 is not as bad as some gamers are making it out to be, but it's also not nearly as good as what a lot of people are saying as well. It falls somewhere in the middle, closer to the not very good side, and just overall feels uninspired and bland once again. If you have College Football 25 or even Madden 24, I wouldn't trade in your old car just yet, because this is not a $60 upgrade. Hell, it's not even a $40 upgrade. And on principle, I just wouldn't buy the game at all, and I'm still not going to. I'm not an EA creator, and in fact, my live stream was blocked because I was streaming the game, and since I'm not an EA content partner, apparently I was violating copyright rules for just playing the EA 10-hour trial access and streaming it. So it's time for some real competition from a real studio. I know having a hot tub in the trunk of your car is extremely tempting, but the car's still going to break down and that hot tub's going to become a hassle. So my advice is hold out. Don't send your car to Pimp My Ride, drive the old one into the dirt, and wait for the car you really want to come along. That's it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the review, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you want this type of content. And be safe out there. Take it easy. Until next time, peace.